Daily Beats Productions. Daily Beats Productions. You are listening to Daily Beats. Daily Beats Productions. Daily Beats Productions. You are listening to Daily Beats. Daily Beats Productions. You are listening to Daily Beats. Daily Beats Productions. Daily Beats Productions. Daily Beats Productions.
What up, YouTube? My name is Tiago Duarte, and welcome to another live stream here. And this is the Producer Show, where I answer your questions about music production so that I can help you out, speed up your learning curve. So, first of all, I would like to thank you for joining the live stream. And if you are watching this, just leave a message in the chat so that I know that you are watching and we can interact. If you have any questions, you can also leave them in the chat so that I can do my best to answer your questions and help you out with anything regarding music production. So I will be doing a little bit of announcements now. I will be doing this live stream every Saturday at around 6 p.m. GMT +2. Actually, in the next 2 weekends, I will not be doing the live stream because I will be in Portugal on vacation. So I will travel the next Thursday, and then I will be back on the 26th. So I will stay 2 weekends in Portugal. So I will not be able to do these live streams, but I will have enough content to publish videos here on YouTube. So I will prepare everything so that you can still have content here in the channel. And yeah. But going back to the live streams, I will be doing these live streams every Saturday, except the next 2 Saturdays. But the regular schedule is Saturday at around 6 p.m. GMT +2, which is the Berlin time. And what else? I also have a link in the description where you can subscribe to the newsletter. And in this newsletter, I will be sending only information about the live stream. And I will be sending forms where you can post your questions, and those questions will have higher priority compared to the ones that I have already, and the ones in the chat, because as this live stream hopefully grows, more people will start joining and asking questions in the chat, and this will also, I'm sure that I will be losing some of the questions from the chat. And if you really want your questions answered, the best way is to subscribe to the newsletter. I will not be sending any product materials or marketing materials or emails. It will be just information about the live stream. So let's go ahead and jump into the first question. And first of all, I also would like to thank you guys for subscribing, for joining. And I'm already close. I think I need 20 subscribers to reach, or 19 subscribers to reach 10,000. This is a really great milestone for me, and it's something that I've been working in this channel a lot to try to grow it and make it bigger so that I can help you with making music. And it's really, really a good feeling to see 10,000 subscribers. And it's really, really amazing. So thanks for everything. And I haven't reached the 10,000 subscribers yet, but it's very close. So that's probably going to be a very cool vacation gift, I guess, reaching the 10,000 subscribers. So let's jump into the first question that I have here, which is, what is arpeggio? So let's jump into FL Studio so that I can show you what an arpeggio is and how we can use it in our productions. So here we are in FL Studio. The first thing that I'm going to do is launch a synth or a plugin, a piano, so that I can exemplify what we are talking about. Let's go with this Yamaha C7. So let's put this at maybe 90. It's a good BPM. And let's make first a chord. So I will start by putting these in C minor. It's okay. And let's do a chord. So this is C minor, the C minor chord. And as you can see, this is just a combination of several notes. So a chord is a combination of several notes played together. But if you played this same chord, instead of playing the notes all together, if you played with a little bit of space between them, that's what we call arpeggio. So to transform this chord into an arpeggio, what I would do is do something like this. And I could even repeat this. So usually when we talk about arpeggios, we talk about repeating notes constantly. So this would be something like this. And for instance, we could actually, so we started with a C minor chord. We could now go to, for instance, D sharp major. And we could do the same thing. So we could just move these ones here. And for instance, this one, since we have two together, I could move it here and then repeat the process. And maybe remove that one. Or maybe go here. I think this one sounds better. As you can see, we can control, basically we can transform our chords into arpeggios by doing this, by breaking the chord into small notes or smaller notes, and then move them around so that we can make this going up. We could also do going down. So we could do something like this. And these ones, let's see, go here and go here, 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 and so on. As you can see, we can go up, we can go down, and we could actually do both. For instance, we could do arpeggio where we do something like this. So we go down and we go up, or we could go up and go down. And as you can see, we can pretty much do whatever we feel like in terms of creativity to make our arpeggios. We can go down, up, we can mix both, and something like that. And basically what I like to do when I do arpeggios is I take a chord progression, I make a chord progression, and then I do an arpeggiation of that chord, if that's a word. And there's several ways to do chord arpeggios. One of them, I think there's a tool here to create arpeggios. Let me see. Yeah, arpeggiate. So let's take all of these out and let's see if the arpeggiate gives us something. It does not give us something. So what we have to do is create, for instance, chords like that. Let's go. So this is the chord that we have. Let's do the arpeggiate with Alt A. That should be the shortcut. And as you can see, created a sequence for us. This is a little bit faster, but we can control the speed that we have. This was what I did. And we can control the length of the notes. We can make them slower. We can make them faster. It actually sounds cool with some effects there. But as you can see, this can help us have a little bit more control over the piano, the arpeggiation, and it can really help us speed up our process, because if we already have a chord progression, we can just copy and paste and bring this tool to create an arpeggiator. And as you can see here, we have the pattern, which is a default. We could change the pattern that we want. We could go, let's see, let me see this one. This actually sounds cool. I could use this preset to do some type of techno stuff or techno melodies. So as you can see, this is a cool way to make arpeggio notes. There's also another way that we could bring. Let me see here. I think there is here some arpeggiator here, as you can see. So if I play a note, if I activate the arpeggiator, we can see direction up, down. We can go up, down, and bounce. We can go up, down, streaky, and then you will probably have to see what these two mean. And then we have here randoms. I think this one streaks. It makes a selection and it doesn't go up that limit or up and down limit. So let's now click on the note and let's go something like this. As you can see now, it's doing an arpeggiation of just a single note that I'm clicking. And we could also do some different chords. Let's go with major. We could do something like that. Let's go, for instance, with minor. And as you can see, we have this one here sharp instead of the, we have the D, no, the F flat instead of the F, compared with the major, of course. And as you can see, we can speed up the arpeggiation. So let's do, actually this is going slower. We can go faster like this. And we can also go down. Let's go to a range of 2. Okay, let's go now for up and down. And then this one. So as you can see, this restricts a little bit of the notes. So now if I play a chord, it goes a little bit crazy, but let's do this in auto. So what this is doing is basically taking the chord that I'm playing and doing the same thing that I did, but in 2 octaves. If I do in 1 octave, let's do a little bit slower. This is basically what I was playing. I was taking the chord of C minor and I was doing the same thing. So you can also play around here with arpeggiator inside of the range or the miscellaneous functions in the sampler or in the virtual instrument that you have, or you can play them in the as MIDI in the piano roll. So those are the 2 ways, or some of the ways. There are several ways, like I've been telling you guys. That's one of the reasons I love FL Studio, is that you can do the same thing in very different ways and have the same result, and go through different ways to achieve the same result. And that's why FL Studio is so powerful. I think the other DAWs also have this tool, but or this way of doing things. But I found FL Studio to be one of the DAWs that gives me more ways to do the same thing, and I really appreciate that, because it helps me to discover always new things. So I hope that answered the question. Let's jump now to the second question, which is how to program a synth sequencer. So this is a good question, and I usually do this when I'm producing hip hop. I rarely use sequencers, but when I'm doing more like techno or EDM, I kind of tend to go for sequence sounds, because it gives us a little bit of more variation, I guess. I don't know if that's the correct word, but let's go ahead and let me jump into FL Studio so that I can show you what I'm talking about. I think there is a plugin here from this one, Transistor Base, which kind of mimics the let me give some space here, which kind of mimics the TD3. And this is, as you can see, we have here a sequencer, and basically a sequencer is something that we have also here in the channel rack. So this is also a sequencer. So when we put notes like this, we are creating a sequence. And in this case, in FL Studio, we call it patterns, but it's the same thing. So basically a sequencer is just this, is putting notes in sequence order, and you can change the pitch of those notes. So let me take out this one, and as you can see, this is a sequence. So it goes from 1, 2, 3, 4 in terms of beats, and you can change the pitch of the note, you can change the velocity and stuff like that. So this is also a sequencer. And all music or all DAWs are based on sequencers. And you could have a sequence in something like this in the channel rack, and in Ableton are the clips. But you can have this, or the clips are the patterns here in FL Studio. And basically what we do is we create a sequence of sounds, and then we go into the playlist, and then we draw the sequence of patterns, and this gives us an arrangement. So we have the patterns, which is a sequence of the sounds. So let me exemplify. Maybe it's easier to do it that way. Let's open up from template, and let's open basic 808. Okay, no. So now we have a kick, a clap, a hi-hat, and a snare. So let's say that I want to do a kick pattern, something like this. Let's go with 100 BPMs. So this is a sequence of drums of a kick. Okay, so now I can put that sequence here, and we can go to the playlist, or to the playlist, and now we can add another sequence of snares. Let's go with the snare. So what I'm doing here is I created two sequences, one for the kick and one for the snare. And then what I did was I created one sequence for the kick and one sequence for the snare. And then I created another sequence here in the playlist where I call this the arrangement. And basically it's all sequences. It will play this one, and then this one, and then this one, and then this one. That's why it's a sequence. And what you can do here is, based on the sequence in the patterns that you create patterns, and then you can create a different sequence here in the playlist. And this is what is called the arrangement. So it's all about sequences in music production, in modern, at least in the DAWs here. And let's go and let's bring the plugin that I was talking about, which is the Transistor Base. This is a cool one to explain. So as you can see, sequence is just a combination of sounds playing one after the other one. And we could have the same thing here for instruments. So if I hit a note here, you can see that I have a sequence of 16 steps. And this basically is giving me, it's playing one after the other one. And we can see here C5, C5, C6. So it's going from one octave up and one octave down, one up, and then goes to, actually this is G. So it goes to G, and then F, C, D sharp, C, D sharp, C, one octave higher, and then one octave down. And here is basically what you can do. You can create whatever sequence you want. And for instance, if I want to change one of these notes, I can go, for instance, this one G, I want to put it at C6. Let's put this down. As you can see now, it sounds down. Let's make this one also at C4. Let's move them now to C6. And basically this helps us, instead of programming the sequence in the channel rack here, what we can do now is go here and just play a note like that, and this note will be played in terms of this one. So I could just go and put, for instance, C5, C5, and then C6, and then put the individual notes, and I would mimic this same pattern. But basically, whenever I play just one note, it plays all this sequence here, all these notes here. So this is the difference, or this is how you can program a sequencer. There are some advantages here for the sequence. As you can see here, we can create slides, we can gate the notes, and we can add accent to the notes. So if I take, as you can see, now it's just, let's take this out. No, actually, let's do. So what's happening here is that this is actually, it's adding a slide here, as you can see, and I can put these ones also with slide. So this is doing slides here, and we could also do a gate. A gate basically cuts the sound. I was hoping this would play also. So when we do the accent, so without the accent, we just have a sharp, a note with kind of no attack, is very, very, very short note. And when we do accent, we have more like a wow instead of bang. As you can see, this is the difference of the accent. Then we have slides, and basically a slide, it goes from one note to the other. And it does this wow, wow. And let's go also another slide here. So there are several options. Of course, you can still do this with the piano roll, like slides and cut the notes there. But I think some of the sequencers here that are built into the plugins are a little bit easier to work with and can help us do some different effects to the notes. For instance, I have this one, but there are, let me show you some other sequencers that I like. One of the plugins that I like to use for sound design is Hybrid from Air, and this one here also, they have a really cool sequencer thing here. It's a little bit harder to program, but it's really cool. So we can have here the velocity, and we can take, let me make this in, and let's enable the sequencer. Where do I do that? Let's go here. Let's see if I can enable the sequencer. This should also automatically add me settings, step sequencer. Yeah, this is the thing. And as you can see, if I play now, let me bring the volume a little bit down. And I can go ahead and do the same thing. So this is a little bit harder to control because I have to look at here the hint panel to see what are the actual note that I'm playing, and I have to go by ear. So if I'm playing C in my keyboard, I have to see how many semitones I'm going up. So, and then I have to mentally know what note I'm playing, because this doesn't give me the exact note. So then I can go, for instance, instead of 16, I could go, let me see if I can put this at 8. Where is the thing for setting the size of the, let me disable these ones to see if I just play, if it will just play 8. No, it doesn't play 8. I think it has to give us, or we have to play all the notes here. But as you can see, then we can play with the velocity. Let's do. So yeah, there's a bunch of other options that I don't want to go into detail into this plugin because it's, to be honest, I don't use this a lot. I just like to go here to sequenced and do stuff like that. So this would be a good one. So as you can see, you can go ahead and go through some presets and see what are they doing to get an idea of how this stuff work. But it can give us some really cool sounds. And again, this would be just a single note like that. And I could put this a little bit faster. Let's go 130 and add a kick and have this something like a techno track or kind of like a trance track. So this is one of the cool ways to make electronic dance music. I really like to use this because it gives this really cool electronic vibe with just a simple sequence here, and we could go with different ones. This is a trance one. I usually get lost when I'm making stuff like this. This actually sounds nice. Sounds very techno. I would probably take a little bit of high end to this one. Maybe I would do something like, I don't like this too much. I would do something like this. This now sounds a little bit techno or trancey actually. Let's do some distortion. Let's go. As you can see, very simple, very easy to do some basic techno or trance tracks with just some sequence and some drums. Okay, but we are not here to make music. The idea is to answer your question. So I hope that this helped, and that this is one of the things that I like to do. Is like whenever I start to make music, I get lost and everything goes away, and I start making the music, and that's why I named the banner for my channel is master the software, so that it's just you and music. Whenever I'm making music, everything goes away, and this is one of the examples. When I listen to something that I like and I think it's getting nice, then I everything goes away, and I just want to make music. So that's a good feeling. Let's go now to the next one, and the next question is a cool one, but it's a simple one also, but sometimes it's hard to understand the concepts, especially when we are starting out. And the question is, what is a syncopated rhythm? So let's jump into FL Studio 2 so that I can show you what a syncopated rhythm is. So basically what we have when we are making music, we have time, or we have time signatures. And time signatures just gives us some way or a time structure so that we can follow or understand how to make music. And basically in FL Studio we have a normal 4x4 time signature, and what happens here is that we have beat 1, beat 2, beat 3, and beat 4, and this would be, if we play the metronome, this will be the count. So 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4. So this would be the count. And Usually a syncopated rhythm will play on the offbeats. So if I have this one here, so let me actually bring up again the minimal basic 808 because this already has some drums. So if I have this one here, so this is playing every beat. Let's make it a little bit slower. If I want to do a syncopated hi-hat, I would put them in the offbeats. And this would be something like this. So I'm putting the hi-hat and I'm giving emphasis to the hi-hat on the offbeat. So it plays the kick, and then 2 steps later, it plays the hi-hat. 2 steps later, again, the kick, because this is the beginning of the beat, of a new beat. So beat 1, beat 2, and so on. And every single point here is a step. So when we go to 2 points or 2 2 boxes here, this will be 2 beats and 2 steps, sorry. And a beat is composed of 4 steps. So this is an entire beat, and then this is another beat. So this, every single box here is a step. And basically when we do something like this, when we put offbeat or when we put boxes here or sounds playing on the offbeat, we are creating some syncopation. And this gives some interest to tracks, and it can really make your track sound a little bit more human, more add some interest to your tracks. There's also some other type of syncopation that we can play around with. So this is very, I don't want to say mechanical, but very in time. So it's always playing in time, but we could do, for instance, instead of going with 2 steps, we could go with 3 steps. So instead of counting 1, 2, and put it there, we would put it on the 3. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So now you will see that this creates a different rhythm. And actually this would be here, here. I think I counted wrong. Here. So as you can see, this gives us a different vibe to the track, and we could also do this, for instance, with claps like that. And we can basically create different rhythms with this syncopation principle. Of course, instead of going with, for instance, in this one, I went 6 and then 3 and then another 6. In this one, I went 3 and then 9, as you can see here. So we can play around with the number of steps that we do. And for instance, I could take this one and put it here. So this would be 3 and then 8 in this position, which would be in offbeat also there. So let's listen to this one. And as you can see, it gives a different rhythm, a different kind of a break in the drum loop. So this kind of feels more predictable, but if I mix this one here, this kind of breaks the prediction. So it kind of makes the drums a little bit more interesting because it adds a little bit of unexpectancy. I think that's the word that I'm looking for. It kind of makes you not expect, you are not expecting that clap there, but if I put it here, you will kind of feel it's a little bit more predictable. I hope that makes sense. So this is predictable. And if I put it here, it kind of makes it sound a little bit off, but it sounds good at the same time. So this is the way to playing around with this syncopation, with the numbers of steps that you put in between the sounds can really make your drums or your melodies more interesting. And one thing that we could add here is add a little bit of swing to give it even more feeling and more variation. Let's take the swing. So this is syncopation, and I could give you examples after examples, but the basic idea here is to just play around with the number of steps that you have in between your notes, and this could give some really cool sounds, really cool effects. I also like to do this, for instance, with the plug sounds. So let me show you an example of something plucky. Let me see if I have here some percussive sounds. This could be one. Let's do here. Let's put this every 3, and then I have to take also the something here. This has arpeggiator, and I don't want. So if I play this now, let me. So as you can see, we can play around and make this sound really cool and make our sounds a little bit more interesting. And we could, for instance, in this one, make it on normal tempo. So I hope this helps with understanding what syncopation is. Basically, it's just a way of breaking the loops, or breaking the weak and strong accents in the time signature that we have in our project. So let's go and jump into the next question. And I hope you're enjoying the live stream so far. If you are just joining, just let me know in the chat that you are joining. I like to always see who is joining the live stream so that we can have a conversation. If you have any questions about music production, be sure to have them here in the live stream or put them in the chat, and I will do my best to answer the questions. So let's go to the next one. And this is a question that I had from, or that I have from one of my comments on a video that I did, and it's from Uxlane. I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. And basically the question is there any benefit to loading IL instruments and samples onto DW, or can I just, and this DW is direct wave, or can I just use my own sources? Just wondering if there is anything that I'm missing, like a functionality. So let me see if I understood this correctly. Let's go and break down the question. So the question is there any benefit to loading IL instruments and samples onto direct wave? So there are all of the image line instruments and samples that we have. We could either use them directly in our project, just drag and drop them into the playlist and use them, or into a sampler and start using those sounds. It depends a little bit. If you have, usually, let me show you in FL Studio. FL Studio has some sounds here, as you can see, instruments. And if I open this one here, we have keyboards. We have 5 keyboards here. And if I drag and drop this, you see that this will load me a direct wave preset, as you can see. And basically this is just a normal piano. Sounds really cool. A little bit, this is a closed grand. We could have a grand piano and the Rhodes, and even an electric piano. So I think if you have samples that are, for instance, as you can see, all of these here, every single entry here, it's a sample. So if you have a library of samples, let's say that you have 61 samples for a piano, of a piano that you sampled from somewhere, or that you got from a sample pack or something like that. If you have all those samples, then it makes sense to bring them into direct wave and make an arrangement just like this. So I have some of my own plugins that I use, and I did that. I created, I dragged and dropped all the sounds based on that specific sound that I was creating, and then I just make a selection like this so that every single note plays only one note, and or plays one sample. And in this case, it's very good to have this in direct wave. If you have only like drum sounds, I would not recommend to use direct wave. I would recommend to use FPC. And for instance, I have here a bunch of presets in my FPC, as you can see. I have all these sounds here. So these are the default ones until here. But then this one, Headbanging Trap Drums, is my own pack. Then I have some samples from Mars. I have here my other pack that I'm working on, soprano drums. I have some techno kicks. So I would say that for drums, the best option is to use FPC, because this gives us this pad thing, and it's way easier for us to have drums here. As you can see, if I load something here, I have all my drums here that I can play around and make. And this, I think, when we are talking about drums, FPC, I think it works way better than the direct wave. But when we are talking about instruments, direct wave works better. So you will not want instruments to load instruments here in the FPC, because it will be a little bit harder to manage and a little bit harder to work with. And you want to do them here in the direct wave. So I think there's every tool has their own, every tool has their own purpose. So I would say that if you have samples from ImageLine that you downloaded, and those samples are drums, then you can construct a drum kit here in the FPC. If the samples that you have is just a combination of one instrument with that you sample a lot of notes from that instrument, then direct wave is way better, because you can map a single note and you can map to several keys, and it will pitch those notes up and down. And you can create virtual instruments like that, just dragging and drop samples. And I think that's the best of both worlds. So for drums, I would use FPC. For sampled bass instruments, I would use direct wave. Of course, there's a bunch of sounds that ImageLine provides. For instance, as you can see here, I have a bunch of sounds that are from ImageLine, and they are right into direct wave. So let's go here, orchestral, and let's go to strings. So I have all these sounds. Just an example, as you can see. Then I can go to bass. They have some really cool guitars. This is guitars. Let's see here, bass. We have some bass sounds also. As you can see, all of these are sampled bass instruments, and when you have samples for that, you can create a preset here. But I think that's it. Let me see the other part of the question. Or can I just use my own sources? So it's like, if you have samples, let's say that you have loops, I will not use loops here in direct wave, because loops depend on timings. So let me show you an example. So we established that if you have single shots of drums, it's better to use FPC. If you have samples from an instrument, let's say a piano, let's say that you sampled 81 keys of the piano, then you can use direct wave to drag and drop all and assign all the samples to every single key, and then you have your own virtual instrument. But then let's say we have loops from FL Studio, so these loops, I would not use these loops in direct wave or FPC. I will just drag and drop the loops, because as you can see, the loops depend on timing. And here you could stretch the loops like that. We can make them faster like that. We can change the timing, and we could have a little bit more control over the loop when we are using here in the playlist. So if you are using the, let's say that the loop is 120 BPMs and your project is 120. If you use direct wave to load this sample, it will sound offbeat because the tempo of the sample does not match with your project. So I will not use loops in direct wave. I would just drag and drop them. You could also slice them. So you could go here, open in Slice X channel, and then you would have all the individual elements. You see, and if we go to the channel rack, we also have the loop here. And this we could speed up also, and it will maintain the same tonality, but it would also maintain the timing. As you can see, this is the best option. When you have loops, drum loops, I would use Slice X. If you have loops to create an instrument, I would use direct wave like this one. And then if you have single shots, it's better to use them here in the FPC. I think that's the my recommendation in terms of how to manage loops from ImageLine or any other sample provider, I guess. Okay, so thanks for the question, and let's go to the next question. And the next question is how to control automation. So one thing that I like about FL Studio is that it gives us some... So there's things that I like and there's things that I dislike about FL Studio when it comes to automation. And I will show you why. Because it's like FL Studio can be a little bit easy to do automation, but it can also make your life very hard to do automation. So let's jump into FL Studio so that I can show you what I mean. Let's bring here, let's see, what can I do? Maybe a 3x oscillator. Yeah, let's do this, and then let's automate here the pitch. So let's go like this. Let's bring a single note here. Maybe let's go with a lower note, a bass note here. So let's say that I have this playing constantly. Let's actually make this bigger. So this is always playing. And let's say that I want to automate the pitch of this sine wave. What I can do is go here, right click, and create automation clip. And if I jump into the playlist, now I have an automation clip for my pattern here. So let's bring this down. Let's close this. Let's bring the oscillator like this, and let's focus on this part here. Okay, let's make this a little bit larger. So this is the way you can create automation. And as you can see here, if I show you the 3x oscillator, this goes from 0 to 48. And right now we are here at, could this be 25%? I guess 25, and then 50, 75, and then 0 and 100. So if I go here, and if I see, as you can see, if I hover this point here, we can see here in the hint panel that this is 25%. So let's say now that I want to go to 50%, which is the 12 or 1 octave higher. What I can do is right click, create a new point, and then go for 50 like so. And then I can create another point and then move this around until I get 50. So now if I go down again, let's go to 25. Let's do that again. 25. And then do this again. So this, as you can see, it's a little bit harder and time consuming to just go and try to really match the exact points. But if I play this now in the playlist, And by the way, let me disable all the other oscillators so that we just have one. So we just have one note and then we automated the pitch. And if I show you the 3x oscillator, this will be moving by itself according to the automation that we just added. So let's say that now I know that I just want to go from 25 to 50. How can I make this my life easier? You can control your parameters with automation by, if you double click on the automation itself, you will get a channel window like this. And as you can see, we can create LFO, but we can also set here the minimum and maximum. So let's say that I just want to go from 25 to 50. That's the amount that I want to do. And what you could do is put here 25 and put here the maximum 50, like so. And what would happen in this case, I would just have to go from 0 to here, because what I'm doing is limiting the range. So instead of being 0 to 100, now is 25 to 50. So if I play this again, we have the same effect. So if I now, let me make this window a little bit smaller so that I can show you everything that I'm talking about. And let's open also the 3x oscillator and the automation here. So as you can see, I managed to change the minimum and maximum values. And as you can see, this, instead of going from 0 to 100, or the automation, instead of going from 0 to 100, now it goes from the minimum to the maximum, which is 25 to 50. And this helps me to do a little bit more control, have more control over the automation or the values of the automation, and make this automation a little bit easier to draw and a little bit easier to manage. As you can see, it goes from 12 to 24 as before. And now let's say that I want to go, I want to go to 75. So in my automation, instead of then going into every single point and put it at 75, now I can just move one single knob and it will adjust everything. So if I play now, you see that now it goes to 36, which is 2 octaves higher. And let's say that I now want to go, for instance, to just 40. So this is a way for you to control your automation, to have a little bit more control over your automation and how you draw the parameters. So if you know that you might change all the parameters, you could go with minimum and maximum, and this can really speed up your changes in your project. And by knowing this, you can have a little bit more control over your automation, because sometimes it's a little bit hard to manage the exact point that you want, because you have to see here in the hint panel, you have to see the exact value, and sometimes it takes a little bit of time just to go there to the exact point. But if you know that you want to go from 25% to 50%, then you can set the minimum and maximum and then just play around with the volumes here, and you know that you will always be inside of the range that you want. And this is something that it really helped me in my with my automations, because it really helped me to control the range of the automation and make it easier for me to automate my parameters a little bit more precisely. And that's the thing about FL Studio. It has some really cool things about. This is the only tool that I see this feature. I don't see the other tools having, like Studio One or Ableton. I've never seen this feature, so this is the only DAW that I think it provides this feature. And again, this is one of the reasons why I love FL Studio. Okay, so we have a little bit more time for the last question. It's already 7 p.m., but let's try to answer this question. So this question is also from one of my YouTube comments, and is how to map keyboard knobs and slides to parameters in FL Studio. So I did a video showcasing or doing a review of my previous keyboard, which is this one here, the M Audio Keystation 61. I now have one from Arturia, which is the Keylabs Essential 61. I think that's the proper name, and I really love this keyboard because it has some pads. It has some. I'm making a mess here in my desk. It has some pads. It has some control knobs or buttons. It has some sliders. It has some rotating rotating knobs. And in this keyboard here, I only have the keys, as you can see, the keys, and then there's two knobs at the end. Actually, there's a slider and three knobs, and then the rotating the pitch and mod wheels. I was just looking at the names because I don't use that too much. So the question is how to map those parameters or those knobs, those sliders into FL Studio. And there's a really cool and easy way to do this. So let's show, let's go with, let's go, for instance, with the 3X Oscillator. I like to use this plugin because it's simple, it's easy to understand, and it's easy to showcase. So let's say now that I want to have that I want to automate my parameters. So I have a slider in I actually have 9 sliders in my Keylabs 61 Essentials from Arturia, which is the keyboard that I have in my studio. And let's say that I want to map one of the sliders to this detune knob. How can I do this? I right click here, and you see that it gives us this pop-up window. And this one here, as you can see, remote control, and it says link to controller. So if I click here, it gives me another pop-up window. And there's this option here, which is auto detect. So if you enable this one, and if you now move the slider, so I will move the mouse here, and I will move my slider with my fingers on the keyboard, and you will see that this window will disappear because it auto detects a knob or a change in my MIDI controller, and it will auto detect that change, and it will assign that knob to the knob that I move to the parameter that I just want. So if I move the mouse here, and if I move the knob, as you can see, now the knob is moving on its own because I'm moving the slider up and down. And I could do this with every knob or every parameter that I have. In this case, it's a slider, but I could use just knobs. So if let's say that I want to change here the pitch, I do the same thing, link to controller, and then auto detect. And if I move now the knob, you see this is a rotation knob, and I can just go and put this into whatever. So if I now, you see that my mouse is in this position here, and let me close this. And if I move my mouse to this side, and then I can move all the parameters at the same time with random values, as you can see here. And this is really cool. For instance, if I, let me see, let's do the same thing for the other. Oops, I think I messed up. Okay. So let me put all these knobs here, or all these sliders. And now I can move things around very easy. And let me move the mouse to this side so that you see that this is not the mouse moving. And I'm basically just moving my sliders around. And this is how you can map all the parameters of your keyboard. You can map them to any parameter here inside of your plugins, or even you can map automation and stuff like that. You can map everything into the to any parameter in your MIDI keyboard just by right-clicking here and doing link to controller. If you want to reset this, as you can see, this is a link 1, and it gives me channel 1 control 73. So you don't have to memorize what's the control or the button or the slide number. You just do auto detect and you just move the slider that you want and auto detects that. So if I want to reset, let's do that. Let me reset again. Let's see. Let's reset this one and reset this one. Reset them all basically. And now I'm moving the same sliders and it's not moving. Simply not moving anything because I reset, I unlinked all the parameters. So if I want to link them again, I have to go back, link to controller, move the slider again. This is as simple as that. And FL Studio gives us some really cool ways to, or a really cool and easy way to do this by auto-detecting the parameter. Of course, you also have in your options, you have to have your MIDI keyboard. As you can see, the Arturia Keylab 61 is connected and is enabled. You can disable this one. So I disable, and now I'm still moving my faders, and it's here, the 3x oscillator, nothing is moving. If I enable this again, and if I move, you see that things now move again with the sliders. So you have to first make sure that your input or your keyboard is selected as is enabled here in the MIDI settings, and then you go ahead and do link to controller, and then you just move the slider or the knob that you want, and this will link the knob to that slider to your MIDI controller. It's as simple as that, and it really makes life easy when we are making this linkage or links in our plugins with our MIDI controller. So I think that's it, guys. We went through 6 questions here. And again, if you have questions about music production, you can leave them in the comments of my videos. I will make sure that I will get the questions and reply them here. I think sometimes if it's a simple question, I can answer directly in the comments. But I prefer to do them here in the videos because I can go a little bit deeper and explain the context and give a little bit more, a better explanation, I feel, rather than just typing stuff. So I think that's it. Again, if you have any questions, I will have a link in the description, or I have a link in the description so that you can subscribe to the newsletter. And in this newsletter, I will be sending emails with forms where you can post your questions. And those questions will be, I will be sending the forms. You can post these questions, and the questions will have higher priority compared to ones that appear in the chat. And yeah, I will be doing these live streams every Saturday at around 6 p.m. GMT +2, which is the Berlin time. And I'm located in Stuttgart, and that's my position now. That's my geo position, I guess. And yeah, I think that's it. This was a cool live stream. I hope you learned something. I hope you took something from the live stream. That's my main concern, or my main purpose, is to help you speed up your learning process so that you can become a better producer faster. That's why I do these live streams with your questions. And yeah, so any future thing that you have about music production, about the business of music production, you can also post them here, and I will do my best to answer. And yeah, I think that's it. What else? I'm thinking about stuff that I can say. And yeah, I think that's it, guys. Again, thank you for joining. Thank you for your support. And I'll see you in the next one, which will be in 3 weekends. So it will be, let me see the exact day. So I will not be here on the 16th and not on the 23rd. So it will be on the 30th. I think that's it. 30 of this month, I will be doing a live stream, which will be in 3 weeks from now. in 3 Saturdays, I guess. I don't know. Whatever. I'm not my English in terms of numbers sometimes is a little bit bad. That's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you had fun with me today, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.